Well, hello there, everyone. This is Donna McCauley in the DMQuilting studio. Welcome and thank you for joining me today. We have some fun stuff we're going to be talking about, and I hope that you have been able to log on and printed off your handout for today. There's a few pages to it, and so we're going to be reviewing it here shortly, but not in super detail. So I'm glad that you're here. We're going to just kind of hang out just for a moment while we get a few more people connected. I just had an email from someone having trouble getting on, so I don't know if that's happening around the world. I see that we have other people coming on here. So hi, everybody, and thanks for joining in today. Here is our cover page for the straightaway templates and stepping stone template handout for today. And so you want to make sure you have the three little purple stepping stones down at the bottom. And we'll be kind of jumping right on in here in just a minute or so. So go ahead and take advantage of the time. I think that from what I'm seeing, a lot of the folks that are already signed on probably have already gotten their handout. So let's just take a look here and see what we have going. This is our cover page, and these are kind of typical of what I'll be using. It kind of helps you to identify what we're going to be talking about here with some images of what's there. First page here is our straightaway templates. Now in this, this is our user information is what I call it. And what it does explains what all the lines and markings on the template is for. If you already have your template, then you're going to have this on the back side of the insert that comes with all of them. If you don't know what the lines mean, how can you figure out how to use them? And so that's the whole point of this. It is not the only instructions that you get. In some of the templates, there's more greater detail in patterns and things like that. But at the very minimum, you're going to have this. Our red broken line is our stitches. In the straightaway, we have a stitch path. And what that is a channel. And it lets you bring your fabric with the template in place around the foot. You cannot go side to side because it is exactly made for a 1/2 inch diameter ruler foot. And so it lets you do perfect stitching in the ditch and cross hatching and other kinds of straight line stitching, including basting. So down at the bottom is 1/4 inch measurements. And so if those are important, because if you wanted to stop at a certain distance away from your seam edge or your block edge, you might place these lines, whichever distance you wanted, right on there, and then that would have you stop at the correct spot each time. This line where the 0 is your stitch end point, meaning you cannot go any further than what that is because the foot is going to touch the end of the template. So that's how these alignments will let you have that exact and precise stitching. Whether you're doing straight stitching or diagonal diamond type grid for your all over quilting, then these lines would come into play. Here we have across this side is 1/4 inch verticals, and those are each a 1/4 inch away from your stitch line. And this side gives us the 1/2 inch. Also have some measurement numbers across here. So it's really not too difficult to follow. I tried to keep it pretty quick and easy for you to figure out. We also now have over here, you can see there's a longer template, and these are small sizes of the exact template. So this one is about 6 inches in total length, where the 12-inch has a 12-inch stitch path, which makes it about 13 inches in total length. And it's also just a little bit wider. It's a total of 4 inches across. So if you like to do any kind of work on a bigger block, or maybe you have your machine on a frame or something like that, this might be the ticket for you. We'll actually do a little bit of stitching in a little bit with this, but I wanted to just kind of go over what some of this information is. Then we have images of our stepping stones. This is 50% the actual finished stitch size of the templates, and here we explain how to read the template, what all the lines and marks mean. One thing that is extremely useful in using the stepping stones and any of the other kinds of grids or cross-hatching is, of course, the basic markers. Now, whether it is the 12 by 12 size or the 4 by 12 size, it's going to help you get very precise markings on your block so you can place your templates right exactly where they need to be. What I especially like about the basic marker is that it will hold your fabric down flat, and then you mark right in the middle of it. It's a straight version that lets you put your marker, whether it's a chalk liner or a pen or whatever you're using to do your markings, down inside the little slot, and they'll be straight. There's other measurements on there. The slots are all spaced at 1 inch apart, whether you're on the 4-inch or the 12-inch. And so your precision is right there. We have diagonal lines, numbers on the sides for measuring and alignment and distances. And it isn't 12.5 inches. I always got kind of messed up using some of the cutting rulers that are 12.5 inches when I was trying to do my measuring and marking. Invariably would end up with it turned around the wrong way and have that extra 1/2 inch in there and just totally throw everything off. So I just eliminated that on these particular templates. They're exactly 12 inches by 12 inches or 12 inches by 4 inches. We don't need that 1/2 inch in there messing us up. We will stitch this out. For some of you out there that might have the stepping stones, I'm kind of curious if you can tell me if you have them and if you've used them, and so how they worked for you. They're pretty interesting templates. To me, they kind of look like a Moroccan tile, for example. Up here you can see some of the stitch pattern and the way the tiles lay together when they're on the wall or a surface or the floor or wherever the pattern is. You can create that same kind of look with your stitching with these templates. And so it's really kind of fun. And they are a little, I'm not going to say they're difficult to use, but once you figure out the placement and the positioning, they're really quite easy to use, and there's a lot of forgiveness in there too. And then we go on into some images that are taken from a project that I put together when these templates first came out. And these are just some of the images. Here is another one taken from a larger quiltlet that used only the stepping stone templates and the straightaway to create the piano keys, and we have borders and cornerstones as well as the all over edge to edge fill. Here I created on a different pattern and used a border, And so this all uses the straightaways, or the stepping stones. So these are just little sections from these patterns that give you those bits of information. So let's take a look at the templates and move this out of the way. Here is the 2 straightaway templates, and you can see if you have used the standard size, which was the first one out, that there's a little bit of a difference here. And we can see, so right down here is 0 coming up our ruler. This smaller size is a total of 6 inches in length. Of course, you're going to lose 1 inch down here. So your stitch path is 5 inches. It's a little bit narrower, but it's just perfect for holding your hand. I use this thing a lot. I even use it for my basting. And if you've not ever had great success with stitching in the ditch, this might be a solution for you. All of the lines are etched into the back. These templates are made by Sew Steady, so you know what the great quality is of them. This line right down through the center is one that is in line with your stitch path. So if you stay right on that, let me get some darker fabric. It might be a little easier to see. Sometimes the light kind of plays tricks with us, and so if I have some black fabric, those lines show up a little better. So right down here is our stitch path line. So when we're doing stitch in the ditch or anything where we want perfect alignment, we would place, of course, our needle in our starting location would be on the spot, and then align our end stitch line right with where we want to go. And that foot will travel right down through the middle. Like I said, it cannot wobble. It can only go backward or forward, depending on how you are using it. If you want to go sideways, you get to turn the template, and then you can go sideways, but you will not wobble back and forth. And like I said, the 12-inch version is just a longer template. It does have a little bit more on it. I placed the 1/4 inch alignment marks, vertical lines, on both sides rather than just one side. There is on both of them, you can see the 45-degree angle line. And just in case someone is out there that has one of the other brands of long arm machines on a frame that has a 9/16 inch foot, there is also a template that's in between the two. It's longer than this, not quite this long, that is designed specifically to use that 9/16 inch foot with it. And it is the straightaway for long arms that's 9/16, and so Sew Steady has that available also. So that is the information here, and let's take a look at the stepping stones. In the set of templates, there is 3 different sizes. There is a 2-inch, a 3-inch, and a 4-inch. And that's 2x2, 3x3, and 4x4. So that makes all of our measuring and calculating real easy, because we just have very minimal information that we need to know. If we are using the 2-inch template, then what we want to do is create a 2-inch grid with that basic marker. And we could do that. Whatever size we want is the size of our grid. We would position our basic marker. This is the 4x12. Mark through the line. So if we're doing a 2-inch, we would mark through this line and this line. It's real easy, just all the even numbers. And then to turn the other direction, we would simply turn it and line up with one of our marked lines and then mark the other directions. I have a piece of fabric here that's marked we can look at. So this has the 3-inch grid, and you can see how we would use that. Now I marked a bigger space, but this smaller size template could work. I did not mark the end lines just because I'm not going to go out there with them. Once these are marked, then you can turn and align this line down through the center or any of the others on the sides right on the marked line that you put in, and you can create these. If you want 1/2-inch spaces, then you just adjust the ruler accordingly and you can get those 1/2-inch increments. So let's see if we have any questions real quick, and then we'll do some stitching. I need to just kind of run through the comments and see if there's anything I need to respond to really fast. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of comments on here. So it looks like there's some people not finding the handouts. I posted that right on the Sew Steady page. So if you scroll down, go to Sew Steady and you may have to go right back to the page itself if you didn't get notice of it, and scroll down. It should have been about 1:30 this afternoon, about a half an hour ago, that was posted. So it should be fairly close to the top. So I see someone is saying, I wish these templates had a key like the Westerly templates. I can't use them with my long arm. I don't know what kind, that's for Nancy. I don't know what the machine is that you're using, Nancy, but all of the machines that I'm aware of have the ability to slightly lift the foot just a little bit. I know that some of them are fixed foot without the foot lifter, but it can elevate slightly and then slide the template in around that. I used some others that I had created that were not the nice acrylic like these, and it on my long arm that I used to have, and it was a little tricky to figure out initially how to do it, but it can work. So I'm sorry if you're not able to use it because they are a lot of fun. So let's see here what we have going on. This is our templates, and I want to show you, just do a little sampling of how they stitch, and then we'll work on a little bit of a pattern here. Let me move things around. And we'll get some fabric over here. So first off, let's just take a quick look at this straightaway, or the long one. I'm not going to mark anything. Let's turn my machine on, get it to wake up. I'm not going to make any marks or anything. I'm just going to come along, and I'll show you how I based along the edge of my quilt project before I get going. We know that the edge of the template is going to be 1/4 of an inch away from our stitch line, and so that's a real easy guide. I will place this, let's see if we can see that with that white fabric grid glider underneath. Sometimes it's difficult. Let me get some more black up here. So what I'm going to do on my fabric is position so the edge of the template is just barely on the fabric because I want to stitch that 1/4 inch line. And so let's move this over so you can take a look at what I did. Position the template so that it's just on the edge. I want my stitching to be that 1/4 inch in from the outside edge. So with my spacing gauge, you can see that we're going to be right down through here. I found that that's a real easy way to do it. You can go farther over, but I try to get as close to that outside edge. Do need to be a little bit cautious so that you don't press down on the far side and adhere to your machine top. You want to have that elevated just slightly. So I'm going to put my needle down, and it's a good idea to go ahead, even though we're basting, it's a good idea to go ahead and grab that bobbin thread because our feed dogs are up. And so if we don't do that, we're just going to create a big mess. Put my template back in position. I don't really have to do any marking or anything, but I can just do a couple of stitches so I can get rid of my holding the thread, and you just stitch. Now here's a place you don't have to worry about your length. So I got off a little bit, which happens if I get my template off the outer edge, my fabric might want to fold up. I use one of the stilettos. Let's get this one so you can see it. And by holding my fabric right at this outside edge over here, it's going to keep it flat. If I try to go too fast when I first get started, that's what will happen because I'm holding thread and all kinds of things happening. You can lengthen your stitch however much you want. It's not something where beauty is important, just functionality. It's also sometimes a good idea to use a different color of thread than what you're using in your project, just so you know that it's basting. So another thing you can do, let's lift my needle, and I'm going to lift my presser foot. When I do that, it removes the tension off of my top thread. Let's move some of this light around. It loosens the pressure or the tension off of my thread. I can now move my fabric however far I want and take one stitch and up, lift, move, one stitch and up. As long as you lift that presser foot, you can move a longer length without breaking your thread. So when we get down to the corner, I'll show you here in just a second how that is useful. Sometimes I'll take an extra stitch just to hold that corner together. When I am quilting or basting a quilt to do a lot of work on, I will use this method. My stitches are probably 1 inch to 2 inches apart, and that lets me just snip those threads and go with it. So let's just take another stitch right here and then I'll cut the thread. So if you've not tried this method here before with your basting, give it a try and let me know what you think. It's really pretty easy. It does work. You can do it out in the middle, anywhere you want, but you can see right here how long my stitches are between them. So these are a little shorter, more like long quilting stitches, but they'll come out easily. snip a few threads here and there and pull them on up. These are even easier to come out, and so I will just do some kind of a grid pattern out through my quilt so I can get rid of any pins or anything like that I have. That's especially useful on a bigger quilt. I have a lot of questions sometimes that come through and want to know how on earth do you do a larger quilt and not kill yourself with all the pins. Well, I don't like the pins because I do kill myself. So doing it this way makes it real easy. Come down the side, come over 3 or 4 inches. I would actually go all the way around the outer edge and then come off down through here and go right back through the center about 3 or 4 or 6 inch part, depending on how big the quilt is. When you get ready to work in a particular area, you don't have to remove all of that basting, only that's going to be in the way of where you're going to be quilting. So that's something, if you haven't tried it yet, might be a fun thing to play with. So let's take a look. I have a different piece of fabric here that we have marked with some grids. Let's see here. Maybe we'll work on that one first. And I have a 3-inch grid pattern marked on here using our basic marker. On the template, we have a top line. Let's get that solid piece without the other marks in there. We have a solid line. This is the top of our design pattern, and a bottom line. And those are our highest and lowest points of the template. Here is our horizontal center and our vertical center. And right through the thread slot is our bottom vertical line. And so long as this is centered on our mark line, we're going to know that our bottom point is where we need to be. And then we have other lines out here that help us know where our stopping points and outer edges are of the template. And that matters so that we can land where we want to. And of course, we can do this without a spacing gauge, but if we have one, it's a lot easier. So there's a couple of different ways we can line this up. One is that we are centered with our horizontal line and our vertical line, horizontal and vertical centers, right on our grid, and then we can move across that way. Or we can come down here and line up our top and our bottom. We are 3 inches by 3 inches, however we turn. So let's do this. And we're going to stitch a pattern and come across and then come down and come back across. So for this, I will start over at this side, which is my center, so that we can travel all the way around the template and come back over to here. Sometimes if we start a little bit before where we want to finish, you might have a little bit better luck in hitting your landing spot just right. And I'm going to try and stay out of the way, so I'm leaning away to see. So template, stitch along. There are quite a few lumps and bumps with this particular template, so if you get going too fast with it, it's easy to get off track. If you stick fairly close to the edges, and then here I need to readjust my alignment, then you will stitch correctly. Once we get back to our starting point right here, we slide the template over. So I'm going to put those threads underneath. Let's turn this around so you can see. We're lined up on our marked lines again. Our vertical line is now our horizontal line. And so it doesn't really matter which direction you go with this. Those lines are guidelines to help you kind of stay mostly straight with where you're wanting to end up. Now what are we going to do? We're over back on the area where we started, but in order to bring our template toward us, we need to be back over here. We can go around the top or we can backtrack around the bottom. Whichever way is easier for you. As long as you don't take your hands off that template or move it, you should be able to stitch right back on top of those previous stitches. Notice I said should be. Sometimes on this second pass, I go just a little bit slower, just in case I get off track. I can catch it before I do too much damage. So come stop with your needle right in line with that location, and then slide it on down, line it up. We can go around the top again. So these are the instructions that are in your handout for today, how to create this all over pattern this way. It works the same way with all three of the templates. You could mix and match your sizes if you wanted to. You could do one row of one size. Of course, they wouldn't align tip to tip just right, but that doesn't mean you can't use them. And if you were to leave a little bit of a space in between them, it turns out nice. Here we are. This time we want to end up right back down over here in this point, so we'll just backtrack. And once we are here, we're sliding the template. So let me turn this around. Get rid of the threads so we can see what we're doing. And here is our three patterns that we just stitched. So that isn't a huge amount, but it doesn't matter how far across the page you're going, or your fabric, the page, and it's the same way. For our second row, we could come right down here and align and travel along, and then here, just straight underneath all of these. And when we do that, we would kind of self-create our little stepping stone in the middle. Or we can align our template here on our marked lines and just do only the bottom part. If you don't trust yourself to connect properly, you can do only half of it. This is my line. And come across and do the next one in the very same way. So if you are new to using this stepping stones, this might be an easier way to get some quick results for you, where you do the first row is complete all the way around, but then the next rows you simply do half of the template. And so when you get to your outer edge, you do the same thing. In order to go back, though, the other direction, we will need to come back, do some travel stitching. Move my template, let it slide. And then we could come right back on across down here or here and go back across. We have our grid lines that we align the template with, and that's what's going to let us complete our patterns. So let's take that out and take a look at that. And let me check real quick like and see if I have any questions here. Oh, Peggy says that she got good comments at the county fair on her quilt. That's great, right here. So congratulations, Peggy. That's really nice to know. I'd like to see some of those pictures, so feel free to post your pictures on there. These have been used a lot by several different people, and it's really quite interesting to see all the different ways. I have a couple of projects here that I want to share with you and let you see what the finished project actually looks like. If I can reach over. Sorry about that. Here is one that is I call it the Stepping Stones wall hanging. And this is a pattern that's available to you. These are all rectangles and squares, so it's a pieced pattern. And then I use the stepping stones to do the quilting with. But here is rectangles that creates our pattern. The full detailed instructions are in the quilting portion of it, or the construction portion, and then they're folded into triangles and then curled back, similar to how a cathedral windows quilt would be. So these are curved that direction, and these here, you probably can't see it with the camera, is curved back this way. And so that's what creates our rounded edges on all of these. And what was kind of fun was that each of these 3 blocks, they're large enough where we have some fun quilting areas. And let me see if we can get the light moved around so you can see. And different quilting designs. This thread is pretty light in this one, so it doesn't show up real well. And this block, let's see if I can turn some other lights off, and sometimes that helps. This particular block has our stitching with the small size stitched inside the larger size. And so it kind of creates a self-echo. And then there's cross-hatching around the outside edges. And then here you can see in the border how the different sizes work together. So that was one of the projects. This one is a little bit bigger, and it was a panel to start with, and I added borders to it, but I'm not going to open the whole thing up because you won't be able to see it anyway. In the middle part is where I did my stepping stone stitching, and you can see a little bit of it here. I use variegated thread, and so it kind of blends in overall with the colors in my fabrics. Use the stepping stone templates and created a border effect and on here. So these are parts of the information that's in the handout. You might be able to see a little bit more about that on the back. But it creates a real fun finish. Let's see if we can open this up. To not have to, sometimes, you know, with a panel, they're so pretty that we can lose our quilting and we want to have something on there, but we don't need to have massive stitches all over the place. But this just gives it a real nice texture and finish to it. And of course it's white fabric, so I don't know how well that's going to show up for you. But in the panel, and I can't really even flip it here, working underneath my sewing machine is sometimes a little tricky when we want to see something on a larger scale. So the panel, the fabric panel, was really quite pretty, and I just used fabrics that work with it, and maybe you can see that a little bit more. So this is something, if you're looking for a quick and easy way to do some all over edge-to-edge quilting, these stepping stone templates are a great way to do it. It looks like here I might have used the 4-inch template on that. So let's just check it out and see. My stitching right here is 4 inches from tip to tip and side to side. And so that gives it not too much. It's just a real nice soft finish. If we wanted to do something like this on a baby quilt or something for our kids, or just to toss on the sofa and cover up with a nice cup of something, then, you know, this is a quick and easy way to do that. You can see here some of that detail on there. And I'm not really trying to impress you with my quilting. I just want to show you how easy it is to be able to travel across the whole width of your panel, and then fill in something around the edges of your border. So this is one good option. There's 3 different sizes in this template set. The cornerstones are created right here simply by marking a center. I believe there were, let's see, 8 rotations, and from tip to tip, and stitch one pattern and rotate and align and tip and work your way around. And so it creates a real interesting pattern that's real simple to do. We all know how to do those rotational patterns, and so why not do it with some stepping stones? They just become somewhat circular at that point. This can also be done with our curved edges out instead of our pointed edge. I think that might be the 3-inch template. So maybe you can see here how that worked, and then from center, then rotate and stitch the second one and right on around. Doesn't matter how many rotations you have, whether it's 4 or 6 or 8 or 12 or 30, you know, you can still work the very same way. So then on the piano keys over here was the straightaway. So this was a fun project that didn't really take a huge amount of time, kind of quick and easy little edge-to-edge quilting here on a pretty little panel. So this is actually kind of a short little class here today. I try not to go over an hour. Once in a while that happens, and sometimes we come up a little bit short. And it seems like we don't really have a lot of questions here. Julianne is asking, what is the template? And so it is the stepping stones templates that we were stitching with today. And here is the packaging on those. In the handout, there's several different pieces of patterns that I pull together to show you how they can be used and how versatile and easy they are to work with. So I hope that this has been helpful for you. And for those of you that have the stepping stones, I hope maybe you were able to pick up some tips and figure out something a little bit quicker and easier for you to do. I will, if I can get over here and go backwards and check and see if there's any other questions or comments that I need to respond to. So Linda says she likes how the long stitching to hold the quilt together. Let's take a quick look at that again. I do too. We have different times in our projects. I always do my basting first whenever I'm working on, this particular panel quilt that I just showed you. I did basting on it at about 6-inch squares. It's just enough to hold it together. It doesn't have to be real tiny. But if I can use my ruler foot and do that, I can make great headway. What I really like is I can keep my quilt flat and just move it along. If I try to use a walking foot or anything, even if you stretch it out and use your longest stitch, and my machine has, that alternating stitch where you can skip one and go to the next, it's still not quite as long, goes through a lot of thread, and I have a little bit of bunching that can happen, but by using that ruler foot, I can keep everything nice and flat and just kind of move it along. My template is real easy to use. There's the big guy. And so we just position that and slide right on through. So real quick and easy way there to get that going. So if you have a knee lifter on your machine, that's an excellent way to lift that presser foot while you're working with these and be able to keep your hands on your fabric. Between that and all of the other little cool techniques that the different sewing machines have, sometimes life can get real easy. So why not be able to have a little bit of fun with what we're doing? So I'm not seeing any other questions or anything in here. I do appreciate all of you coming here and joining us today, and I hope that you show us your photos of your stepping stone projects. This is Donna McCauley in the DMQuilting studio saying goodbye.